and welcome. This is Marnie Swedberg. I am so glad that you are here with us today. We are going to be talking about effective and joyous connections and leadership. And I have a guest panel behind me here that I'm going to bring up and introduce in just a moment. But right now, I want to just welcome you, tell you how excited I am that you're here. Getting ready for this was a lifelong journey for me, as well as the last 24 years hosting womenspeakers.com. So before I did that, I was a women's ministry leader in my own church for 20 years. And then I helped launch women's ministries around the world in 35 countries. And then I started womenspeakers.com because God put that blue clickable map in my head in the shower. And he said, this is what I want you to do next. And so I served women's ministry leaders by connecting you guys with women speakers over these past 24 years. And it is the greatest joy, surprise for me to be able to now come around and do this Women's Ministry Association, as well as host the state-to-state women's ministry leadership conferences. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I want to just start this session off by telling you that God loves you, and he is so interested in getting to know you personally. As a leader, it's so important for you to model that close personal relationship with Christ. One of the things that I do, and I don't recommend this if you're playing games, but if you're serious with God, then I really recommend that I'm just going to say that you trust God. And I just got my Bible with me always. And if I don't have my real Bible, I have my phone Bible, and I sometimes do it in there. But if I'm confused or upset or whatever, I just pause and I just say, God, what do you want me to know about this right now? What do you want me to know? And sometimes he will just give me a word. Sometimes he will give me a scripture verse. Sometimes I will just open the Bible and put my finger down. So in the last couple of days, I've had some really fun ones. So yesterday, I was just overwhelmed. And if you can imagine now, coming up to this day today, I thought that this website would be ready to go in November. We have just been fighting hurdle after hurdle after roadblock after roadblock. So I'm so excited that we're ready to go now. But coming up to it for the last 2.5 months, my mother-in-law has been staying with us. She's 100 years old, and I've been caring for her. So amidst all of the technical stuff and all of the extra stuff like that, a couple other things were going wrong. And yesterday I said to God, I'm dying here. I am dying here. What do you want me to know? And he just put in my heart, 2 Corinthians 1, verse 9. And when I opened my Bible, this is what it says. Indeed, we felt within ourselves that we had received the very sentence of death. But that was to keep us from trusting in and depending on our own selves instead of God, who raises the dead. I love that. I get such a kick out of God. He has a great sense of humor. Just before I came live, I had notes about today, what happens before, what happens during, what happens after. And I wrote down in my journal here, I wrote down, going live now, what do you want me to know? God put in my head to just grab my Bible and open to a verse. So I grabbed my Bible. I opened to and put my finger down on, before I look, put my finger down on Jonah 1, verse 17. I'm like, what? And it says, now the Lord had prepared and appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Our grand opening is 3 days. And I just burst out laughing. I want you to know that you are serving a God that you can trust. And no matter what you face in women's ministry leadership, no matter what you face in your life, you can trust this great big God. He is so faithful. He is so good. And he is ready to come and assist you anytime you need assistance. It's my great joy right now to welcome our guests today. I'm going to bring up Nicole first. Nicole Marie, hello. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
And Jessie Perez, Jessie Lee.
Hello, thank you.
And Suzanne Nadell is here.
Hi, good morning.
Oh, you guys, I'm excited about this. We are going to have a great time. And if you would like right now in the chat, if you would just put where you're joining from, we'd love to know about that. And we are going to be talking about effective and joyous leadership. So I'm going to launch us off here with a couple points that I wanted to start with. So it's like the obvious one, right? Start with prayer. So we could spend the whole conversation right here. And we're going to touch on it again as we go. But we could spend this whole conversation talking about the value and the importance of prayer. And there's a quote from a long time ago that says, Satan mocks activities that have not been bathed in prayer. And this is just the important spot for us to start. So I'm going to just ask each of you guys, before you make a new plan, do you have like a prayer ritual or a prayer habit that you participate in? Is it different every time? I'm going to start with mine and give you a moment to think. So mine is, I ask God 3 questions, and I might do this 20 times a day. Some days I might do it never in a day. But I ask God, what do you want me to know about you right now? I pause to make sure I'm hearing his voice. If I'm hearing busyness, if I'm hearing condemnation, if I'm hearing, here's what you're supposed to do next, I know that I'm not really hearing from God yet. I'm just hearing my own thoughts. So I pause long enough to literally hear from God. And usually it's something like an attribute of God, a character quality, something like I am, or something like I'm here, or it's something like that I hear. And then I know, okay, I've got my mind and my spirit connected now. I was just in my brain a minute ago, but now I'm connected with God. And then I ask the second question, what do you want me to know about this right now? That's when I often am led to a certain passage or whatever. And then what do you want me to do right now? And it's that last question that really oftentimes has nothing to do with what I thought I was supposed to be doing. It has a different direction, or it says come back later, or call this person now, or whatever. And as I get these instructions, that's how I go forward. And so I love to start everything in prayer, whether it's a conference like this, whether, whatever it is. So let's go, Jessie, let's go to you first.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm kind of not a structured person by nature. God didn't make me that way. I'm very fluid. And so I kind of keep this open dialogue with the Holy Spirit continuously. I think it's what works for me when Paul talks about pray continuously, right? And so it's always kind of I call it pulling the Spirit. Okay, what do you think about this? Okay, what's your thought on this? What's your angle on this? And so as I'm thinking about, who I am, what I need to do, I remember just in January, I was laying on my bed. It was like, God, what do I really want in life? And so that's like just this, like the core question that we all ask ourselves at some point in life. And it was like all the details and the mess and the what I could do and what I'm good at got stripped away. And it was like, I just want to write books and sign books. And that was just kind of like, of all the things that I could do, that's not the thing that people are like, oh, this is what, but that was what he showed me, because that's where my heart was. But when I go out and I'm pulling him for what I'm supposed to do, sometimes it'll be like, okay, this is the direction. And then I'm in the midst of doing daily activities. And then all of a sudden the Holy Spirit comes back with what I've requested, what was going on. Right. And it's so heavy. I'm like, drop everything. I need to go pray. And I run into wherever my area is to pray. And I just hit the floor or the bed or whatever. And I just pour out, because that's where I know he's going to meet me in that moment. And so it might not be when I've asked. Sometimes it's right away. I could be, I remember one time I was praying in the shower about my mom who was lost in the ocean somewhere. And I was like, God, what do I need to pray? And he just dropped on me, it's okay, she's fine. So it depends on the moment, but it's very fluid for me. And sometimes it's that powerful moment. Other times it's that subtle, quiet voice that just tells me who I am.
Love it. Suzanne.
The word that comes to mind for me first is bold. And I would just say not to forget boldness in our prayers and boldness in our ask. I think a consistent ask of mine, because I think just the pace from what I've done career-wise and everything is I ask that I hear what he wants me to hear. Because there is so much. So hearing what I want, and I also ask for like bold, like, be clear. And it's amazing when that happens, the times where, where I am bold enough to be like, I am literally on my knees right now and ready and deliver. And it's awesome. Now, on the other side of that, I have learned, it's not just about God asking for what I want. It's about me giving God what he wants, as well. And that is the quiet time surrender. And for, anyone listening who hasn't had I will say just last week with the organization that, I'm part of right now, is like, I reached out to my partners and I'm like, hey guys, I'm just feeling unsettled. Everything besides this is going on the back burner tomorrow, and just pray with me. Know that I'm going to be praying. And it's amazing how clear it is when we make listening to him the priority. Instead of meet me where I want you to meet me, I'm going to take the step and make hearing from you the priority. And I will say, for me, as I've gotten older and realized, again, it's not just about me, and meeting God in that time that he wants to spend with me, and that surrender, it just makes me smile. It just makes me smile how things fall in line when we actually surrender and obey.
Love it. Nicole?
Lately, God has just been reminding me just to allow him to search my heart. And I find that in my prayer time, I am so influenced by my circumstances, my emotions, or even justifying things that are in there that are not okay. And it is a vulnerable state to open up a prayer time and just say, Lord, search my heart. And he takes me to places that are perhaps holding me back or things I'm justifying. And it is one of the most humbling times, but I feel like it has been one of the most beautiful times of just really starting out and saying, okay, search my heart. I'm just going to be silent. Like, where is it that there is, I don't know about you guys, but I can be a very hot mess in here. And where he just kind of dissects and says, hey, you're holding on to this, and this is what's holding you back in this area. And it has made my prayer time so much more fruitful when it's just that rawness of, Lord, I just don't want to be who I was yesterday. So help me to be something new and refine me a little bit more today. And so that's how my prayer times have been going, with just the question and the silence of search my heart. And God's been revealing areas that I can clean up a little bit more.
That is so awesome. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. And as we go forward, I'll probably just invite one or two of you to respond after each section here. We've got so much ground we want to cover with you guys today. So the next thing I wanted to just bring up was Matthew 22:37, the Great Commission, which is basically do to others as you would like them to do to you. And as a leader, I just want to encourage you to keep that in mind all the time, where you have the opportunity to actually put yourself in someone else's shoes. And unless you try to do that, it's the compassion of Jesus. As he walks around, he's looking at the crowds and he's going, I have compassion on you. I'm exhausted, but I have compassion on you. And it's pulling that from heaven down. What would Jesus like done to that person right now? If you were in their shoes, what would you like done for you right now? And keeping that forefront, I think, really helps put things into perspective as a leader, instead of just rolling with the best. If we just go, the best I can do, that takes us so far. But as we become Jesus to other people, letting God flow through us and actually trying to imagine what it may feel like to be them right now, it goes a long way toward smoothing some waters sometimes. And then the other one was Psalm 145:16, which is that we hold everything in an open hand. And God taught me this years ago. One of the first ministries I had, I remember it was with young girls. And I remember the first time one of the girls was going to leave. She was going to not come anymore to the ministry because she was going to do something else. They had a different priority. And I was devastated. I was like, oh God, I don't want her to leave. Don't let her leave. And he just said, put your hand out, Marnie. And he just said, would it be okay if in your life you just let women run across it? Just let women run across your life. And that's really been helpful to me. As mamas, as women, we have this tendency to want to grab and hold, sometimes over tightly, sometimes too long, sometimes giving too much protection. And so I just encourage you to, yes, be the full mama, be the leader, be the woman that God has you to be with your gals, but also hold them in an open hand. They are God's gals first and not your own. Anybody have a comment you want to just add right here?
I just think that was so well said, and that God brings us into different people's lives and brings other people into our lives for different seasons. And sometimes it's a long season and sometimes it's a short one. And just even a smile might be the one thing that they need in that moment, that they remember that they've been seen. And so whatever time period we're in their lives, that we can make that impact, not just feeling what they're feeling, but showing them that they are seen and they're not forgotten.
So beautiful. I want, in fact, you to segue now into this next section, Jessie, where we talk about understanding our true identity in Christ.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things that I think God has really spoken to me about more and more, and it's been a growth and process, and I know I'm not there yet, is that a lot of times we find our identity in the wrong places. And it's a natural thing that our brains do to, accommodate and structure and make sense of the world around us. But when we understand the way that we are thinking, and then we understand the way that God has designed us to become, and the mindset taking on the mind of Christ, and what that really looks like when it comes to our identity, it really helps. So when we think about our identity, a lot of times we tend to put our identity into our roles. So I am a mom. I, had a career as this. I, am a this. I do that. And whatever it is for you, when that need that you're serving, it dries up or evaporates, no longer there anymore, all of a sudden you feel like a piece of your identity is gone. This happens a lot to people who are retiring or empty nesters as their kids move out, or if you lose or leave your job and you now are doing something else, or not doing a career path anymore. And that piece of emptiness, as if a part of you is gone and you have to find yourself again. But when we stop putting our identity in the things that we do or the roles that we carry, and instead we put our identity in Christ, then no matter what role we carry, no matter what need we fill for that season, it helps us to be able to just still do that well, but that our identity is truly found in Christ because he says that we are who he says we are.
Love it. So important. One of the things I've learned over the last couple of years is that we get to, as leaders, as people, communicate with other people in their true identity in Christ instead of whatever identity they're presenting in the moment. Is that making sense? And as I've done this more and more, I've recognized when it's not my true identity showing up. It's like, oh, that's not the Jesus that wants to flow through me. That's actually one of the false identities I have here that's easily anchored or whatever it is. Other thoughts on that, on the identity?
I love that concept only because I think we can all relate in our own lives that God has taken us through different seasons. And if we identify with just that season, then we're never ready for God to move us on to the other season. We're just, as Marnie said, we got a hold of it like this, and we're never open to what God has. But when our identity is in Christ, we can smooth sail through different seasons that God has for us so fluidly.
Yeah. And Suzanne, I do want to, let's segue right in because you've got your purpose in Christ here right next. So go ahead with that.
Yeah. And, seasons is definitely, I think, something that identity in Christ does help us with breaking up with those seasons and everything as well. I want to start with the verse real quickly. Mark 1:35-38. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else to the nearby villages so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." I don't know about you all, but I spent a lot of time up through my mid-40s obsessing about what God's purpose for me was. Was it to stay in the news industry where I was working? It was always the granular thought of purpose. And there is one, while we're gifted with different things to do different things, and God puts us in great places with amazing people at the right times, when he needs us. What I lost track of when I was spending all that time in prayer and all the time speaking about purpose and all the time thinking about what exactly is it what you want me to do right now, is that every day I was being called to live out my purpose, which was to love him and love people. And whether that be leadership in the church or leadership in a newsroom, it was to show the love of God and love people. I'll never forget during 2020, the year 2020. And I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was leading a newsroom in Atlanta, Georgia. And, it felt like just the earth was imploding everywhere. And a dear friend of mine who's a woman of faith said, "I'm so glad you are there to be a presence of peace for everyone around you. A presence of peace in the chaos." That was a time when I was trying to figure out what was my purpose. I kept saying, am I supposed to be here? Am I supposed to write a book? Am I supposed to be speaking? Am I supposed to leave and go lead a women's ministry? And maybe it was all of those things at different times. Maybe it was, but what I lost track of, and ladies, what I want to remind you to not lose track of, wherever you are right now, our purpose is to love him, love people, show that love, be a presence of peace, and to not lose sight of that. When we keep our focus there, what I found is that all of those other questions and those things, they really start to fall into place. And that anguish and everything that we were obsessing about over an answer that there really wasn't to have, the answer's there the whole time.
I love that. So good. Any thoughts popping up, you guys?
I do think that anchor of peace, I think that's so important. And, as we are rooted deeper and deeper in Christ, those things that cause friction and chaos and confusion fall off. And we can be that anchor of peace where the people around who don't know Christ are still feeling that chaos, they're still experiencing that, and they will gravitate towards us simply because they see us as an anchor and they don't even recognize that that's what's happening. But the Christ in us is what's anchoring them. And we need to be careful that we don't take that on ourselves and say, oh, it's me. No, it's not us. It's never us, right? It's always the Christ in us. But as long as we continue to just be his vessel, it's like you said, we can be that anchor of peace. And I love how you said that.
Nicole?
I love, because I used to be so nervous that I was going to miss my purpose, like so scared, until I realized, and it's exactly what you just said, Suzanne, if you stay close to God, you can't miss him. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you did. And then God spoke to you. And there's so much truth in that.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking about being younger too. I think as we get a little older, we get a little more perspective on this one. But I remember being young and just being like, God, just write it in the sky. What do you want me to do? I'll do anything. We're so desperate for it. And it's truly the walking out. It's truly the walking out of the everyday. And you mentioned 2020. That was a year that was really profound for me, because it was profound for everybody. But for me, because womenspeakers.com, all of a sudden we went from the busiest month we had ever had in our history to just obviously no one was inviting speakers. How could you? And so it just went from so busy to nothing. So every morning I would just get up and say, so what are we going to do today? And it really changed my whole life going forward. I still do that. Even now with a busier schedule, I still get up and I'm like, so what do we get to do today? And it changed it from needing to know the whole big purpose of the whole big plan to needing to know the next step. And I think that that's just critical. I want to kind of take a little pivot here. We're going to talk about just the relationships and the community inside of a women's ministry that can be effective and joyous. I want to start, Jessie, and give you the platform here for a minute, talking about collaboration over competition.
Sure. Thank you so much. One of the things that's interesting is that women tend to be in the culturalized tendency of competition. We tend to compete. And so that goes back to like way back in history, and there's a lot of history of why that is. But really what comes out of that is the reasons that happens is typically a feeling of scarcity or fear. And so a fear of I'm not enough, I need to prove myself, a fear of if I don't push somebody else out of the way, I won't be able to take my position. And that's the same thing that comes from scarcity of there's not enough to go around. And so I want to dispel both of those myths right now, is that there is enough of God. There is enough of what he has created across the landscape, whether that is in business, in ministry, in purpose. He has not put anything in place that will say, well, if this person is doing that, that means I can't let you do that too. That was your purpose. Now she's got it. That doesn't exist. And so we really need to take that self-reflection right now and go through. You can even journal this out and say, where do I feel a sense of fear or scarcity that somebody else is going to take my place, or that I need to push somebody else out of the way so that I can do X, Y, Z, and get those out, because they're probably in the back of your mind that you don't even know are there. And that's going to create this concept of competition. God did not call us to compete. He called us into unity. He called us to be one body. We each have our own place and space, and we each have our own responsibility. It may look similar, but I always believe in working myself out of a job. I'm raising up the next person to take over what I have, because there is always more work. The work is many and the workers do. There is always more work, and God may have you there for a season. He may be ready to promote you, but he can't promote you if you haven't brought somebody in to take that and carry it for you so that you can hand it off. So don't hold things too tightly. It goes to what Marnie was saying earlier with the open hand.
I love that. And I'm just going to send it right over to Nicole here for creating space by removing clicks. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we all share a common vision of really wanting women to feel welcome the moment they walk into our women's ministry. I would love to say that, like, my women's ministry, they do Romans 15:7, right? Accept everybody, and that will praise God. But truthfully, friend groups form, and then from friend groups, cliques form. And then we're like, oh, we feel like we have lost that sense of belonging in our women's ministry. So I just want to give some practical tidbits on how we kind of fight this in women's ministry. And the first, I think it has to start with the leadership down. I hope everybody here and is with us today, you're a leader in some form, and we have to model that. I remember a moment in our women's ministry when all my leaders, and we have a pretty large women's ministry, about 30 of them came to me and said, we want red shirts. And I thought, oh no, because what happened was the moment I walked into our women's ministry, I saw pockets of what could be perceived as cliques. I have never gotten rid of something so fast. Now, they weren't being cliquish, they were doing their jobs, but we also have to fight the perception of cliques. So I believe we do this through a couple ways, starting with the leadership down, but also including events or like bunko. We do bunko, which is great, gets people moving, but also questions, table talk times. I will seriously wait until tables will get together or bring other people from the outskirts in women's ministry, just so that everybody feels included. But one of the things we have done in our women's ministry to really practically fight the cliques is we have assigned leaders, and their job, we call them our includers. And they are to eye the people on the outside of the room, or to eye somebody who is sitting by themselves at a table, and to bring them in to the group, to really create a sense of belonging. And I think as leaders, if we really live this out, my friends know they're not going to hear from me if it's a ministry event. They have my number. But my role when I'm in a ministry event is to really connect with people and try to create a sense of belonging in women's ministry and fight the cliques that best we can.
I love it. Includers. That's so cool. One of the things that I'm hearing, and that's been kind of more on my heart this year than ever before, is the word intentionality. Mm-hmm. When you call someone an includer, I mean, that's so intentional. You're not just letting this maybe happen. You're saying, this is your title, actually. Yeah. Any other feedback on this part here?
I'm just in the background saying amen, amen. Because I think with both of these, especially in church world and church circles, in my experience, it's an area where we need some work. And I think there's a lot of reasons to why we need some work in it. But I think we think sometimes that we're better than outside church spaces at these things. And I think when it comes to like women's relationships with each other, sometimes we're not. And I think just great points.
One of the things that's very easy to let happen is to let things just settle in. And
Mhm.
shaking them up is absolutely part of our job as the leader. I always am telling the Christian women speakers, as we go in as a speaker, our job is truly a disruptor. I mean, we're going to do it in the most beautiful way, but they come in one way and we want to send them out transformed, somehow changed. Well, we would never say, come and have a root canal because nobody would come. But if the root canal is what's needed, that's what we want to send them out with. As a leader, you actually have to be the one that says, I know that's very comfortable for you to just be with your same group every single time, but it's not healthy for the whole group for you to do that. And so I'm just going to encourage you and challenge you to step in where you need to step in. And with that, Suzanne, how do we do all that with compassion then?
Well, compassion is a complicated word for us because then, then we can, also talk about boundaries and all of those things. But I would say as leaders, you can't have compassion for people if you don't know your people. It comes down to relationships, right? And when you get to know people at the heart, not just surface, you can figure out so much about them. So, I mean, the first step is you're not going to have compassion for the person's situation, know what they're truly in your group, unless you are relating to them as Jesus had relationships with folks. He just didn't jump in and leave. He lived with his disciples. He knew them. They were his community. That's one of the biggest parts when it comes to leading with compassion, whether it be in a church or outside a church. Get to know your people. That's when you know what's going on. When you understand that, especially in times of conflict, and especially at times when it's hard, you can understand also them and what their motives are. And that helps you figure out what it is that's really behind. Maybe, if someone's not being nice to a person or being short with a person or just not friendly or suddenly not showing up for something. What is the motive about that, behind that for them? Again, comes down to relationships for you to be able to have compassion with them. I would also say for yourself, check your motives. Is it compassion or is it something else? People can see right through that. And that comes to having a relationship as well.
I love that. We are going to address shortly, we are going to address the sense of overwhelm at needing to do all of these things so well, because it isn't that. So Suzanne, when you're talking about leading with compassion, know your people, you're not saying, okay, there's 250 women in your group. Just talk to me about that.
Yeah. No, it's know the hearts of your people. And I think, what that goes to, you figure out who to know in your group. You're listening to the people who have influence. You're showing up at things. You are being visible, but you also have people under you that you're listening. They have the relationships. It trickles down. They have the relationships and you have the relationships with them. And it should all work in a good communicative circle like that, trickling up and tripling down in communications. So then you can know the heartbeat of the people with your, I would always say it's say the last organization I led was 160 people that were like employees under me. And I would say to the people who were directly to me, I should never be surprised by anything of someone who's with you, because you should be close enough to the person who is reporting to you. And we should be close enough in communication. And those relationships of those closest to you, like Jesus's close relationships were his disciples. That he modeled that for us. He had those who were in his inner circle who he trusted to be the relays of information and other people around.
Yeah, I love it. Nicole, feedback?
No, it's solid. I think of empathy when you're talking about that compassion too, and just how Jesus modeled that for us. He was so empathetic towards everybody. And sometimes we get caught in our own world and we just forget that compassion and empathy are part of us modeling Christ for others. And it's just so important.
Right.
Yeah. Jessie?
Yeah. I think too, the knowing the heart, sometimes we get fixated on, well, if I did that, this would be my motivation. So that must be everybody's, right? And so, when we think about the diversity of how God has created our cognitive brains to think and absorb and receive information and think about the world around us, that somebody else may have a different motivation. And we need to really look at them for who they are, not for how we would respond, right? And they may come at something from a particular angle and we say, well, my motivation would have been this, that must be theirs. But we need to give them the benefit of the doubt and just get curious, be able to really know who they are, not how we would respond if we were in a situation that they would be in. So
Love that. Okay, Suzanne, I'm going to give you back the platform again here, dismantling the confidence myth.
How many times has someone told you at the root of your behavior as a woman or something was that you just lacked confidence? We may say it about other women that we're coaching or seeing something in. And the truth of the matter is many of us don't lack confidence. What we lack is permission to claim the authority we have. There's a difference between confidence and feeling like you can't do it because you felt like you haven't had permission. And I will say, as women talking to women here, I think we should remember that we help give each other permission for those things. It's being kind of an advocate for other women. Yeah, that brings along confidence to some level, but at the root of it is not a lack of confidence. It's not that you just need to work on feeling better about yourself. It's giving someone permission to claim the authority and how God wired you to be. That speaks volumes to someone. Whenever people can claim their identity and knowing, you know what, God wired me to be this way, then they can step into it and know it's theirs to own and really shine and do what we're called here to do. So I would challenge you, before you say to someone they need to work on their confidence, what is it that they've just felt like they haven't been allowed to do that maybe you as a fellow woman in a leadership space can be the person that, you know what, echoes and supports them in a meeting, that tells them they can do that thing that they thought that they can never do, giving them the permission to be who they are. You're going to see things that you haven't seen before.
What's coming right to mind with what you shared right there was being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we do with our kids. You can do it. I'm right here with you. I'm standing beside the track or whatever it is, cheering you on. I believe in you. It's the same thing we do with our women, those in our group, but also those we are nurturing to take leadership positions. We have to encourage them beyond what they currently think they can do. Isn't that what God's always doing with us? Any other thoughts on that?
I love that perspective. It really got me thinking quickly about how a lot of women who are breaking barriers are the ones who don't wait for permission. They say, I'm not even going to ask for more permission. I'd rather ask for forgiveness afterwards if they have a hard time with me being there, right? But those are the ones that can pave the way for those who are waiting for permission to say, hey, come on up with me. Join us at the table, right? Because there are a lot of women who do wait for permission. And I think you're right. They've got the skills. They know that they can do it. But that permission piece, I think, is huge. I think you really hit something there really powerfully.
I'll just add to this idea of speaking life, because I do think there's a lot of people who don't know the skills that they have because they think, well, everybody can do that well. I'm just me, like everybody can do this. And that idea, as leaders, we have such a beautiful opportunity to say, actually, you do that amazingly. And I would love to invite you into this space, and inviting them and just speaking life into things that we see in women that is remarkable about them, and really allowing them to see who they are in Christ,
Beautiful. That just segues right in. Just go for empowering our team strengths. Yeah.
So this idea of empowering team strengths is so passionate to me. I think of 1 Corinthians 12 and this idea that we all have a different set of gifts and talents, but how do we actually empower our leaders to live in those gifts and talents? I have just a couple practical things that we can apply, like this idea of not filling a vacancy. It's really easy to see a hole that we need to fill and think, I just need to find an able body. But instead of finding leaders within our church community, and we can find their passions and their talents and really empower them to live in it and to create a position within our ministry for them. And I think if we do that, instead of just filling a vacancy, we find more fulfilled leaders in our ministry, but we also actually have a more productive ministry. But it is no secret that women's ministry can get spicy when you have a lot of women that are in leadership together. And I want to just give a tidbit on how to kind of empower team strengths with that, because sometimes friction can just be two people valuing a different side of the equation, like one woman really valuing keeping on time and the other one having a relaxed time set to make community. And it can look like they're conflicting. But even in 1 Corinthians 12, the eye will usually value what it's seeing, the ear will usually value what it's hearing, but truthfully, they work best when they value each other, and really putting that in place in ministry. So instead of saying, well, the eye can't hear, or the eye or the ear can't see, being able to say, wow, that was a different perspective that I actually needed. And if we do that in women in ministry, we actually see that we are more fruitful with that. And lastly, one of the things that I do and to really empower team strengths is asking my leaders, like, what do you need from me to succeed? And really having that honest conversation, because some people, they need a full checklist. Other people, they need to be left alone to be creative. And as a leader, I have to even change my leadership techniques so that I can empower my team strengths and help them be more effective in the ministry.
I don't know about you guys, but I have found personality tests are so helpful for a team, in that instead of it being you're doing it wrong, you're doing it differently. It brings that kind of to the surface, that whole concept of we are going to do this differently. I wanted to just tell a story here that was coming to my mind as you were talking. I was speaking at a conference in the Philippines, and these are just beautiful women from all over the Philippines had come together for this national conference. And I had them break out into groups with their own church women to do personality tests. And when they came back, several of the teams were crying. Mm-hmm. And I said, what's going on? I said, we realized that we have gotten rid of all of the girls who love to have fun. We recognized as we were doing these tests that we kept all of the, leaders and all the organizers and all the peacemakers, but we got rid of the girls who wanted to have fun because we devalued what they were bringing. Mm-hmm. And as what you were saying, Nicole, it's just, we have to allow people to come to their faith, live out their faith, how God created them to be. And sometimes on teams that can get a little difficult to do. So I encourage you, there's a personality test that I wrote just for women's ministries over at Marnie.com, but there are so many that you can get, and even ones that you can do quickly in a group. It doesn't have to take a week or whatever. So other thoughts there?
Yeah, I use the same thing. It's so important. It helps even with like the TV show that we run. We had all the crew and we have our guests all take the colors assessment, because we want to know who we're working with, how can we work best together. And we actually talk about the guest colors on the show and help the audience understand those too, because as we can speak and understand each other's differences, we understand how important each one of those is and how that brings the full picture to the table. So absolutely.
Yeah. Suzanne.
I think, Marnie, you said it very well. And I think another way to look at it is, there's power in diversity. And when people say diversity, they, automatically go to how we look, but it's also how we think, how we behave. And the best team is always going to be a diverse team. And if you just surround yourself with people who look like you, think like you, act like you, you're never going to reach your God. God made us all differently for a reason. And I think it's to complement each other.
Absolutely. Nicole, I'm going to actually let you comment on this and then give you the platform here for leading from the back.
Absolutely. I love team strengths. I think it's a big piece, but one of the main concepts that God has really been showing me in strategy for women's ministry is truly leading from the back. And obviously Jesus described it when he said, whoever wants to become great among you must be a servant. Whoever wants to be first must be a slave to all. I think no matter what, if you really want to be a leader, you have to be willing to clean a toilet, to fill some toilet paper, to pick up some plates, to really serve people. I implemented something in my women's ministry just a couple years ago. I've been doing full-time women's ministry for, over a decade, but I decided that 30 minutes prior to the gathering, I was going to let go of all programming and I would give it to my team. They could make the last minute decisions if anything went haywire, but my job was to serve. And I would just sit with women. I would pick up their plates. I would walk them from their car if it was raining with an umbrella. Because what God was teaching me through that season was if they don't see Jesus in me, they're not going to hear Jesus from me. And so I've been trying to implement that. And over the last couple years, as I have just been trying to lead from the back, I have seen God bless our women's ministry in such powerful ways. And I believe it's trying to demonstrate Jesus. And it is hard to let go of the details. Don't get me wrong. It is very difficult, but it has truly been one of the most rewarding things I have done is just to serve the women in the ministry.
I'm trying to get us back here. We're back. We didn't leave you. Leading from the back. I love that. There's so much out about how to lead like Jesus did. And I just love, one of the things that's really struck me in the last couple of years is just the reality that he spent his first 30 years being a carpenter.
Yeah.
He let God do the timing of his ministry. Mm-hmm. I can't even fathom God, making a bowl, sitting there. Yeah, I'll fix the leg of that, mm-hmm. For 30 years. And I think sometimes we get all really consumed with how important our work is and it is, but just keep a heart like Jesus.
Yeah, he just took time to sit with people. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much, we think of service as doing things, we got the Martha mindset, but so much of service when we're trying to model Jesus is just being too. Just finding those people and sitting next to them or being present, giving them one of our most valuable resources, which is sometimes our time, is an act of service.
Yeah, Suzanne.
It's a lesson in, humility is what you're talking about, is thinking of yourself less and others more. And I think, it's what I love about what you've done, and being intentional about it. It's set an example, and it just you, I think, to kind of do a check on what are my motives? What am I doing? And, your motives can't be about you and shining if you're the one willing to do all of those other things. And other women see that, and that brings up other leaders with good habits who emulate and follow that example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jessie.
Yeah, I think definitely, all these are so important, and really the foundation of it is, the moments that Christ gives us here on earth. What is that to be filled with? And sometimes that's to be filled with just sitting and being. He asked me to do an entire year of rest. Oh my goodness. I didn't even know what to do with that. I never rested before. I had to learn how to rest. But I think that's why he took me through it, because I think so much we get occupied with the productions of doing. And sometimes we don't know how to just sit and be. And so throughout that year, I learned how to sit and be. And now I'm able to be healthy about that, to where I can be in some portions of life and act and function and do in other portions. And knowing that it's not about what society drives us to. It's not about what is your title and how many accolades do you have, but it's really about your relationship with Christ and whatever he says, because in the end, that's what really matters.
Yeah, I love it. And again, this is one that we could spend the whole time on, just leading like Jesus and just study his life. he just was such an amazing leader. I also think of in John when he's giving his last big sermon there in John, and he's getting ready to be crucified after he lived on earth for 33 years. He's getting ready to be crucified and to leave. And who he's leaving his ministry behind to are 12 guys, 11 guys, because one's going to betray him, but 12 guys who all betray him in the end. They all run away. They're young. He knows they aren't ready for this. He knows they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what to expect here. But he knows he can trust his Father with the mission that his Father gave him, with the men that his Father gave him. And he would go die knowing that these guys are not really as ready as he would like them to be, as a leader. And so I think just in this leadership role, just keep going back. When you have a question, when your heart is hurting, go back and see what Jesus did. He had times that what we go through, he's been through. And so just keep going back and look at how he did it. How did he trust his Father in each situation, and go forward from there? Nicole, I'm going to pass it back to you to talk about mission a little bit. And this is so important. Tomorrow, I think I'm giving away the mission vision training for somebody. But if you don't have a mission set up for your group yet, make sure to take some time and dig into this. Right now, I want you to talk about how we can sometimes get this mixed up in the priorities.
Well, we understand all of our mission, right? Our mission through women's ministry should be to connect women with Jesus, whether it's their first time or whether we're reconnecting, planting seeds, watering it, whatever it may be. And that is our mission, is to love God and love his people. However, the method that God does this through our ministry, even through our lives, it will change. It has changed many times. I started in youth ministry. I would have never thought that women's ministry was my calling, but it has changed. We kind of talked a little bit about that through seasons. But even Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:22, he said, to the weak, I become weak to win the weak. And God will sometimes change up the method of our ministry in order to reach different types of people. But if we are stuck like this to the method, then it will be incredibly hard when he wants to change it up, because he doesn't change up the mission. The mission is a part of his plan for his people. But that method and how he goes about it will change through seasons. I think about this practical side. I'm a real practical person just because I have to implement these things. And every spring, I'm in this season right now where everything that I have done for this whole past year gets laid out on the table. And then I get to ask God, what are you giving back to me? And I'm going to be honest, the hardest times is when something is fruitful, it's good, and God says, no, that's not for you next year. I don't want that. But every time that I obey him and saying, okay, I am just being dedicated to the mission and I'll let you change up the method however you want, he always, always has given me something better in its place, more fruitful. It's kind of trading the good for the great that I can't see, but God can. Praise God that he is a little bit bigger than me. But this idea of not marrying the method, be married to the mission. And when we are married to the mission and what God has for us, we become more flexible, more adaptable, and then we're able to pivot on a dime, because I don't know about you guys in ministry or wherever you're at in your life, but God is constantly changing things up. He's constantly keeping me on my toes. And I believe that's how he wants it, because he wants me to be completely reliant on him. And so, this idea of making sure we're dedicated to the mission, not being married to the method.
I love that. I love your practice of laying everything out once a year, saying what gets to come back in. Like, it's okay, I'm going to put us all over here. I mean, I don't think I've ever thought of doing that, and I love it. I'm totally going to do that. I'm going to sit with Jesus. I love to have that kind of an open hand. I think we've talked about this a couple times. We're going to keep talking about it, because the reality is that our nature is to grab and hold. That's kind of the human nature, is to grab and hold. So what we see modeled in Jesus' life is this amazing ability to hold an open hand. I was thinking earlier, we were talking about knowing our people, having compassion on them. And Jesus had compassion on the multitudes. He knew that most likely in his time on earth, he would not ever see some of those people again. He had to just heal them and entrust them into his Father's care. I mean, it's just, if we keep going back to Jesus holding an open hand, but I love that. Suzanne, what about you there?
I mean, a mission keeps you focused, right?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you reminded folks, if you don't have one, whether it be for you, for your organization, but to keep everyone going in the same direction. And that's where, like, when you feel things getting off, it's often because you've got people going in different directions, and the mission keeps everybody on the same team, and knowing what to do and all of those things. And it adds so much clarity. So then we can be compassionate. So we can do all of those other things, and we're not distracted by the preventables. Like, there's the necessary and the unnecessary chaos. And whenever you're aligned on your mission, I think you have more time to deal with the necessary chaos.
And just to clarify too, a mission and a vision statement, while we all have the same mission as each other to go into all the world, all that, we also have a specific mission. So my mission statement is, I exist to encourage women, provide them with practical help, and turn their thoughts toward Jesus. And I do that through written and spoken words. Okay, so a church women's ministry should have a vision and mission statement, and it should align under the church's mission and vision. It should not be something that's so radically different that you can't even tell they're in the same organization. It should come under, make sure that whatever you're doing is aligning with what God's already doing in the church that you're in. And so as we go forward, what happens though is, with that vision and mission, you have the ability to, just what Suzanne said, to say clearly yes and no to certain things, because it just doesn't line up. For example, for me, my husband wanted to buy a restaurant and have me manage it. Okay, so I was already doing a lot of things, and I was like, God, I don't see how that really applies. And he just showed me in that flash instant. I just understood. It would be very encouraging to women to have them be able to, it was a takeout only restaurant, to have them be able to stop by and grab something for their family for dinner that they would be able to use that night. That would be encouragement to them. I would be providing them with practical help, and I would be turning their thoughts toward Jesus if I played Christian music in the lobby. And that's how I did it. And I remember at first being quite confused about this, because it was such a different direction than I thought things were going with the ministry stuff. And now I was managing this restaurant. But as I was watching for God to live out this mission in my life, I would, all of a sudden, there'd be a lady who would be in the lobby, and I could tell that she was upset or something about something was going on. And I would just pass the baton to someone else, and I would just say, do you want to talk a minute? And then we'd go quietly. I had the opportunity to pray with many of my customers. We don't know exactly how that's going to look in the play out of it. But all I know is that after we owned that business for 14 years, and even before the end of that, as I traveled around the world speaking and teaching about Christ and about life, I was able to add women's business training in there, because I had been the owner of a restaurant and after that a retail store. It was a surprise to me how that turned out, how God took that path. But what I can tell you is that the mission and vision statements helped me to be able to identify whether this was something I was supposed to consider. And there were so many things that came into my path that I wasn't even supposed to consider, because they were for middle schoolers, or they were for men, or they were whatever. I was very clear, and it helps you. Jessie, just address this.
Yeah, I love this whole purpose and mission piece, because not only for whatever the group is that we're serving with, but God gives us our own personal kind of focus area as well. And many years ago, I was like, God, I need to know what's in the path for me and what's not, so that as things come and provide opportunities, I can say, does this make sense? And I actually drew on a canvas board, and on the top it says simplify and then pray. And I just only put what he led me to do. And down in the corner, I had analysis career, and put a big red line through it, because I knew that while I was doing that, while I was good at that, that wasn't actually in the path. That was just something that I was doing for that time period.
Yeah.
But things like the writing and helping to overcome oppression and these kinds of things, family, production, was all in the path. And woven throughout it were the 4 colors, because of course the personality thing that I help to do is 4 colors, and that's woven all through it. And what has happened over the years is I have that still up in my bedroom on my shelf. And when I'm ever in question going, oh, what am I supposed to be doing? I look up there. And of course, if I'm laying in bed, the only thing I can see is the top that says simplify, pray. That's it. And I was like, okay, that's what I need to do. But it does help, because just as you said, you can say, what is this thing that just got presented to me? Is that in my path? Or is that something that's good, but not for me?
We're going to talk a little bit more about this tomorrow, but I do want to just swing back around to Nicole and Suzanne. Nicole, any other thoughts that are just popping up for you right now on that?
No, you guys did great. I love it. Having that set mission and then just making sure we're dedicated to that and letting God switch how he performs it in our life. So I love it.
Yeah, Suzanne.
No, you're good. I'm good.
Okay. All right. We're going to go next to, and this is kind of obvious, I guess, but I do want to address it because we can get really, I mean, it's Peter walking on the water. It just takes a moment, our eyes off of Jesus, and we're going down, so emotionally, whatever. So yeah, just talk to us about keeping our eyes on.
Well, it's short and sweet. We all know it, but we do need to have that reminder. It's Hebrews 12:2, fix your eyes on Jesus. And I'm always reminded how, let's say you're riding a bicycle and you see a rock on the road and you're like, I'm not going to hit the rock. I'm not going to hit the rock. And you keep staring at the rock. What happens? You always hit the rock. And we know that what we focus on is what we will navigate towards. And it's like that in life too. Where we choose to focus is what we will navigate towards. We can focus on the obstacles, or we can fix our eyes on Jesus. It is just like the walking on the water. And the idea that Jesus is, if we keep our eyes on him, that he is the perfecter of our faith, that if he is the perfecter of our faith, then he is the perfecter of everything else. He can work through everything, and problems will arise, whether you are living through your mission, whether you are working in women's ministry, leading in women's ministry, you can name it. I probably encountered them. We probably all have here. We know that problems will come up. It's all about what you choose to focus on. And I think that whole idea, Nehemiah 8:10 says, the joy of the Lord is our strength. And that to me is contagious, because I think about that and I think, oh, there's an obstacle. You know what? I have gone to my team before. We've had like 0 signups for an event that we have all this money already invested in. You're like stressing out and you're like, guess what? We are in the best place possible because we're in God's hands. And if we choose to focus on him in this obstacle, every single time we get to see him. We get to see him come through. I've never had an event where we have been under budget because we just keep praising God and he somehow every time comes through, even if it's the last minute. But it's just that idea of focusing on him. And when you focus on him, I really believe that we will see him. And I'm sure you guys can vouch for that too.
Absolutely. Jessie?
Yeah, I think that is so important. And I love that God gave us such a perfect, tangible visual of Peter on the water, right? The storm crashing around and everything is fine as long as his eyes are on Jesus, right? And as soon as these eyes come off, we all know what happens. But, my life scripture that I've really tried to live by is Matthew 6:33. And it talks about seeking first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all those other things we need will be taken care of. And I associate it to, we each have our own kingdom. We each have that space that we're in charge of, that we're supposed to manage. And that's our kingdom. And if we're putting our eyes on our kingdom, God's like, okay, have fun with that. Let me know how that works out, right? But when we put our eyes on his kingdom and we're focused on him and what he wants, he takes care of our kingdom. Anytime chaos and things start to come up, that's obviously just because I'm focused in the wrong place. As soon as I reflect and put my eyes back on him, he takes care of that space that I was apparently trying to take care of too well myself.
I love that, Suzanne.
Focus on him, not what you're going to do, right? I think that's, the biggest takeaway. When we focus on him, there's that peace. When we think we're going to have to take it all on ourselves, and I'll be speaking about in a little while about running the show ourselves, it's not going to go well, and not not taking our eye off the one who will always take care of what needs to be taken care of. And that's where I think we get lost sometimes is thinking that we got to take care of something that really doesn't even matter at all.
There's a principle that's coming to my mind I want to just share here because it applies to the overall picture as an analogy. So there was a young man who came to a church I was at, and his pants were quite low around his hips. And I came around a corner, and there was an older lady who had taken him aside and it was reading him the riot act about his pants being down around his hips. And I remember my heart kind of breaking in that moment, thinking the fact that he's here at all is a pretty big miracle. And the fact that we would stop and we would look at one thing about him that wasn't quite to our liking, to our standard, and we would make a judgment and then communicate that to him, that broke my heart. And it's exactly what we do to God when we look at the one thing that we hoped would happen here that he isn't doing. And we put that as, if you would just do this, everything would have been perfect, And when we're communicating judgment to another person like that, it's as if we're saying everything else about you is just fine. It's just this one thing that's wrong, which is not true. And when we communicate it to God, if you would just do this one thing for me, then I could be okay. I could be okay here. And that's also not true. We need him to be doing all the things he's doing. As a leader, it's really hard for us to keep our eyes on Jesus, on his purposes, his goals, his plans, and off of all of the other stuff that can be so consuming to our minds and our hearts. Nicole, just go ahead and respond to that.
Yeah, no, I completely look at this idea of my focus. I think a lot of people, when we focus on God, a lot of people will say, what are you? It's like being in a dark room. And they're like, what are you focusing on? But truly, there's just this one ray of light that is always there. It's always there. And to other people, we are still in a dark room. But for us, we're choosing to say, I am focusing on the ray of light. And I think that it's a personal choice where we have to keep, and I don't know about you guys, but focus for me is something I have to keep readjusting. It's not like all right, we're nailed in. Like, it's like a constant minute by minute. Like, no, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going back to Jesus, whether it's getting into the word, whether it is just praying, whether it's removing myself from that situation in that moment so that I can get a different train of thought where I'm just a complete surrender of like, Lord, this is in your hands. I am not going to fret over something that is not within my control. You have control. You are God of the universe. I can trust you. And just focusing on him and letting it go and being okay with that. So.
Yeah, I love that. Suzanne?
I think trust is the word there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much to that is at the root of a lack of trust. Like even the rest that we have to take, all of those things, and focus on that. How much, when you think about it, is that the traps we fall into are rooted in a lack of trust of him, and all of those other things that we've talked about today that tie together. It's putting our eyes on him and trusting that he knows better for us than we do.
Yeah. Jessie?
Yeah, that piece that talks about how when we are weak, God is strong, right? And so it's hard for us to naturally wake up tired or just wiped out or just not have the mental capacity we need when we're about to go into something that we need to do. And we need to have it all together, right? And I've learned over the years that we can celebrate those times when we're tired. We can celebrate those times when we really don't have what we need to be able to bring to the table to make it happen, because we have to reflect on, what does God say about this? Oh, wow, I'm really weak right now. That means God is going to show up and be the strength. He's going to come through and be. I just need to be able to truly take myself and put into the seat of surrender. And when we bring ourselves into that place of surrender and say, God, I know I can't do this, and just make room for him, it is absolutely beautiful. And it has never, ever failed when I recognize, God, I know I can't do this. I am not up to being able to handle this, but let me move out of the way and just surrender it to you. I will show up. And when I show up, you will show out and it will be glorious. And it always is. And so when you're feeling tired, when you're feeling like you just can't and you have to show up, just show up. Show up and give it to him because he is able and he will do it.
In our weakness, he is made strong. Absolutely. Before we move on here, I want to just mention that every day when I put on my spiritual armor, I do it kind of head and shoulders, knees and toes. So I grab my shield and I put that out and I slam this big shield into the ground in front of me, kind of like a dressing room wall. And then I just go, thank you for the helmet of salvation and the breastplate of righteousness and the belt of truth and the shoes of peace. And I pick up my sword and I start praying and then go through the day. So at first it took me about 90 minutes a day to put on my armor. And then it's gotten pretty quick, as you can hear. Anyway, as I'm going through the day, if I feel like my shoelaces have come untied, and so the shoes are the preparation of the gospel of peace. And if I ever feel like I'm losing my peace, I've lost my peace, my shoelaces are untied. At that moment, I just pause and you think about, what do you do when your shoelace is untied? You go down on your knee, you tie that shoe. How do you do that? Connect again with Jesus in the moment and then move forward. At a girls' club in my home for 10 years, and 11 to 15-year-old girls would come into my house after school 3 days a week, and we would make meals for families in need. So these girls didn't know how to cook, and I was teaching them how to cook and how to serve and how to sing, and we did other stuff. And as they were in the kitchen, as you can imagine, sometimes it got a little crazy, just like somebody would be acting out or whatever. And there were real live people who oftentimes were just coming home from the hospital or something like that, excuse me, who were waiting for this meal to actually eat. So it had to be edible. And I remember there would be times when I would be so frustrated, I'd just be ready to just bite somebody's head off. And I would just turn around and I would kind of I would open a cabinet door or open the fridge door and pretend to look for something. And I would just say, God, I have no patience left for so-and-so right now, but you do. I need some of yours. And it never felt that he would interrupt whatever that emotion was that was going to carry me away, sweep me away, drown me under, and take a young girl with me, right? Potentially several of them. And he would interrupt that as I humbled myself and went down on a knee and just said, I'm losing my peace. I need some of yours. So as you're going through leadership, as you're going through, even major events, we're going to be talking about here in a couple of days, as you're going through some of this stuff, you're going to be stretched beyond what you can do. It's a promise. He actually doesn't mean for you to do it without him. He means for you to do it with him, with the fruit of the Spirit flowing through us. That's how we're supposed to do it. So I kind of want to just bring it around now. Suzanne, give it to you with the dependability trap, because I think this is where we can all feel really overwhelmed, and yet God has a beautiful path here.
He does. And what is it they say? If you want to get something done, you give it to a busy person, because we get it done. And those of us who are wired that way, we kind of take pride in the fact that we're the one to get things done, and that leads us to continuing to say yes to things we probably shouldn't say yes to, and no to very few things. So I'm going to give you a couple of actionable steps, and then an overarching kind of story and something that has helped me remember that I kind of alluded to earlier. First, whether it be at home, whether it be with your ministry, whether it be with a job outside of it, and if you're leading a team or whatever, spend some time in prayer and ask yourself, what is it that only I can do? What is it that really is my job, and that I'm the only one who could do this? For example, with my child, there are tons of things that I could do for him all the time. I could say yes to everything. But what's the only thing I can do? Well, I'm the only one who can tuck him in at night as his mom. So that became a non-negotiable for me. I'm the only one who could do that. Okay. You know what? picking him up from something or taking him somewhere else. Somebody else could do that. But only I, at the end of the day, could be the one putting him into bed. If you're leading a team and it's a tough time, you are probably the only one who could stand before them as the leader of your ministry or whatever, and be the one who is guiding them through that and speaking to them. So that's something that you do. But maybe mentoring someone else, that's something that someone else can do, and it's an opportunity for them. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, take a look at everything that you're doing and ask yourself, what is it that only I can do? Because there are some things that in your role only you can do, but that number shouldn't be overshadowed by the things that you can be giving to other people. The other thing that I think that is great for us to do is create an overarching, and this can definitely go into ministries and all of that. We tend to pile things on. Everything is additive instead of taking something off. And the world's changing. People's needs are changing. What we can do is changing. So create an old-fashioned stop-start list. What is it we need to start? But okay, what is it that we're doing that we don't even know why we're doing it anymore? We've just always done it. And if the answer is we've just always done it, I hate to tell you that's probably not the right answer. And it may be something that may be coming off your list. But you could do this with your ministry. You could do this with your job. Again, you could do this at home. What is it? A stop-start list. There's a book called The Leader I Want to Be. And it talks about when creating your list of things to do, and especially when it comes to family or your people who maybe report to you or whatever the situation may be, ask them what's important to them. Like, I may be killing myself to get my son to Taekwondo practice, thinking that I'm the only one who can do it, when it really doesn't mean a hill of beans to him if I'm there. Ask him what's important, but it's really important to him that I drop him off in the morning. Okay. One thing is on my stop list and another thing is on my start list. People can tell you what's really important to them. You may be killing yourself over something that is not important to the folks who you think it's important to as all. The final thing is a quick story and a reminder for us to remember all the time. So it was in 2023. I was coming off writing my book. We know it was 2022. I'm sorry. Coming off writing the book and still leading a newsroom, building everything. If you've ever been in book world, writing the book is only the first part. And I thought I was doing fabulously. And then I hit a wall and I couldn't tell if I was spiritually, mentally, physically sick, or all the above. And I reached out to a counselor through my work. And it was through an organization where you can say, if you're a faith-based person, I got a Christian counselor. And I told her the story. And then we prayed for forgiveness for me trying to do God's job. And that was at the heart of it. And her words to me were, Suzanne, you've forgotten that you are not the one running the show. You're not going to be able to sustain anything if you forget that you're not the one running the show. He's the one running the show. And the harder you try to run the show, whether it be continually saying yes, not saying no, not praying about what it is you should start doing versus stop doing, what it is that you should be doing versus other people. And you try to take control and force things without remembering he's the one running the show. You are not going to be able to sustain anything. And that's not the life he wants for you. That's not the life that he wants others to see you living. He wants you to live that life of surrender and remembering that he's the one actually running the show.
I love it. I love it. Each of us comes to this with such a unique set of challenges. Many of our challenges are gifts that God has given us, that, we're like, yeah, it's such a gift. It's also really, really hard to identify what to keep, what to give up. I always say no to everything so you can say yes to God every single time. If you're saying yes to stuff, it's just stuff. Say yes to God and he will orchestrate all of that so beautifully. It's just amazing to me. I always say, when you say yes to something, you have in effect said no to something else. When you say no to something, you have in effect said yes to something else. It's those yeses and nos that are really important. And as you just pause and ask God about it, you said, just stop and pray and say, God, what is it here that I'm supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to delegate? What am I supposed to do? Yeah, Nicole.
Oh, Suzanne, I have a page of notes, but honestly, I keep going back to this idea of it takes a village. Like, you have to start and to stop. That whole idea is you have to let go and you have to trust people. It goes back to the trust thing and being willing to allow people to help us. I am there in life, and that's why I'm like making all these notes, because I feel like the Lord is really telling me that it's okay to allow people to pick up my kids so that I can go do this, or to do certain things, or to say no to this and say yes to this, and to lean on other people in ministry to do other pieces. And this idea that it does take a village. My friend told me the other day, because she wanted to help me, and I was like, no, I got this, right? And she said, are you going to block my blessing? And I was like, what? No, wait, excuse me. She's like, if you don't allow me to do this for you, then you are blocking my blessing from God. And did that put me in my spot real quick and realize that it takes a village, because I'm supposed to allow people to help me. Our mission is never our own. It's a community. It's a village, and we do this together. So yeah, I got put in my spot, and it changed me.
I'm going to pass it to Jessie in a second. This is reminding me, though, of the opposite thing happened to my husband at a church we were attending. They were building an addition, and the guys of the church were actually doing all the construction on it. They didn't hire it out. They had just the men of the church doing it. Well, he would go over there, and sometimes he'd be the only one there working. And he started to develop kind of a little bit of a bad attitude about it, about how he was working so hard and where were the other guys? And this was supposed to be the whole church project, blah, blah, blah. And he said, all of a sudden, one day he got this picture that there were eternal treasures sitting right in front of him as he did this work to the Lord. And that these other guys that weren't showing up left more treasures for him to pick up. So it actually works both ways. When someone wants to do something for us, that don't steal their treasure. And when you're supposed to be doing something and nobody's coming alongside, just know you get all the treasure that time. So that's so fun. Okay, Jessie.
Yeah, I think it also brings up this concept that I teach often, and it was taught to me when I had an executive coach. Now I'm able to pass it down and everything. It's this list, right? It's the I should be doing, I shouldn't be doing, and I don't know. And so when I first heard that, I was like, okay, well, I mean, I have so many things that I need to do. But when he really broke it down to me and helped me understand what that really means, it's the I should be doing because it's in my pathway. It's the things that I really should be doing. Then the I shouldn't be doing doesn't mean you aren't still doing it, because it might mean that you need to set it up for somebody to take over. It may mean that you're preparing it for delegation. It also might mean that you just don't need to do it. Just stop right now. But there are different ways that the I shouldn't be doing shows up, right? And there's the I don't know. And the I don't know, it's okay to put things in that bucket. They just shouldn't stay there forever. And so, like laundry, I shouldn't be doing laundry for my kids because they should now be taking that on and start to do that, right? And they are, right? But there's a delegation process that happens as they build those skills. But the same things in ministry. I think as leaders, we think we need to carry the whole load. No, we need to be a leader to delegate well. And one of the things I truly believe with my whole heart is that good leaders can lead people. Great leaders also delegate well. And that's a huge differentiator, because as leaders, we need to be lifting others up, and lifting others up means giving them responsibilities that we're not dictating how they do. They're just getting to the goal. And we equip them with the knowledge and the support to be able to do it well.
I love that. And I want to give everybody like 60 to 90 seconds. What is one of your greatest joys in leadership? Like where's your sweet spot, Jessie? You're ready.
I am. I love helping people reach their potential. I love seeing that potential and then helping them see it in themselves and opening up the doors for them to get there. I literally thrive on that.
I love it. Beautiful.
And I have to tag off of Jessie. That was the first thing I thought of too, the empowering of others and to replace yourself. I've got a couple women that are ready to replace me, and I'm ecstatic because I'm like, okay, Lord, like, I mean, not that, not that that's probably going to happen anytime soon, but at the same time, like, I just get so excited to see that God is working so powerfully in those people. And yeah, true life change, true life transformation is just one of the most joyous things in leadership.
I love it. Suzanne?
I love spotting the talent and potential, and especially in young girls and young women that they may not even realize they have, and calling it out and encouraging them. I think I would not be where I am if it wasn't for sitting in Sherry Cohen's, chair, who was my, she did my hair. She was my youth group leader, and the things that she said to me when I was a little girl, and the things that the situations that we're put in as leaders to speak life when women need a life spoken into them. I love that, and seeing them flourish with that.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. I think I love the nurturing of collaboration versus competition. That's one of my very favorite roles in leadership, is helping women to know that God really built them the way they are so that they could be part of a team that's all on the winning team of Jesus, and that we can go forward knowing that we are already winners. We are already winners. Just by being on Jesus' team, we're winners. And so it's beautiful to nurture that in groups. And back to just you guys that are listening today, thank you for being here. But we want you to know that your women are looking at you. Your women are looking to you. They're watching how you communicate, how you love, who you withhold love from. They're watching it all. And it can be a heavy burden, but the reality is that it is supposed to be a light burden. I wrote a song recently called With Ease. And it's that, no matter how crazy this journey is that we're on, the reality is that I'm not steering the boat. I'm on the ride. I'm just going with the captain. And he's got it all well under control, even when it feels crazy, wild. And as we rest into his tender care, we will have everything we need to do everything he put on our path to do. And if we say yes to everything, we aren't going to succeed because we'll have said yes to something we needed to say no to. Mm-hmm. So just keep checking in with Jesus. Just keep checking in. Jessie, earlier I missed something that you had wanted to share, and I wonder if you can remember it now. It was hidden purpose. And do you remember what your thought was about that? How?
Hidden purpose. I believe that there's a focus that, definitely is something important to me, that when you're in relationship with others, there is a space where you may find that a purpose that you've been asking God, what am I supposed to do? You may find that purpose is actually hidden in a relationship you haven't met yet. And so it's very important that we don't stay within our comfort zone of the people that we know. And this goes into what you were talking about earlier with the cliques, right? You get into that space, you're with those people that you recognize, you're comfortable with, and you just want to stay there. But they may not be holding a puzzle piece of your purpose that is really important for you to be able to do everything that God has called you to do. And so it's important that we are continuously replenishing and refueling. Imagine a river, right? The water is in that one spot is never always the same. You may have some mix in there, but you have new water flowing in, new water flowing out. It's refreshing. There's no stagnation when the water's moving, right? It keeps life moving. And so you always continuing to build a new relationship, have a new connection, reach out to a new group of women that maybe you would not typically do, and have a coffee with them, have a taco. I don't do coffee very often, so I'll do tacos instead. But whatever it is, even have a phone call, just a virtual call even, and get to know them. Because you may find that along that journey of building that relationship, they have a puzzle piece to your purpose that you would never even have known had you not gone outside your comfort zone and continue to expand your relationships. We actually see this throughout the Bible, even, with people who are going through their journey and they're on their way somewhere and they meet somebody, and along that experience, their purpose is birthed change. We see Esther, we see Ruth. There's so many women and men in the Bible that their purpose is partially embedded in the next person they meet. And so it's really important.
I love that. The hidden treasures in your ministry, in your life that you have not yet come upon. Wonderful. Well, this ends the roundtable portion of this program, and I just want all of you to stay here. But we are going to transition now. So Maya's sharing on the Facebook page. She's sharing how to enter our green room here, so you can come on stage with us if you have questions that you would like to ask while these guys are here with me. We'd love for you to do that. As you are getting ready to do that, I'm just going to segue out of this a little bit and let you know we've got some good stuff coming up. I'm going to put a couple assets on the screen here. First of all, we are doing our Women's Ministry Association grand opening right now, so be sure to check that out at wmassociation.com. We have the opportunity now, starting in 2026, for you to host at your church a statewide women's ministry leadership conference. I'm super excited about these, and these are going to bring together the women's ministry leaders from around your state. Sometimes it'll be multiple states together for the tiny states or whatever, and some states will have more than one. But we are looking for hosts for these events. It's a completely done event for you. The thing that your church provides is the building and the welcome committee, and then hospitality for lunch. Otherwise, everything's provided. And I'm excited to do that. Over at the Women's Ministry Association, that's part of it, is participating in potentially a local or a statewide conference or get together. But there's also the private WM directory where women's ministry leaders can join and just be available to each other. Really, there's also the public women's ministry directory that has a church directory that has women's ministries. Not every church has. A lot of churches don't have women's ministries. And when a woman moves to a new community, she sometimes has a hard time to find a church with a women's ministry. So we have put together this directory that we're filling out now with churches with women's ministries. So you can add yours there too. We are also doing quarterly virtual intensives. So our next one that's coming up is Don Damon and I are going to do the Dream Team Boot Camp just in a couple weeks here, or I think it's maybe the end of next week. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's coming right up, and we would love to have you join us. If you are a member of the Women's Ministry Association, there's no cost for that. If you're a non-member, there is a fee to get into that boot camp. We'll be doing quarterly intensives that are free for our members. And then also the whole training vault over at Marnie.com. This includes all the trainings that I have, boot camps that I have available, just instantly available to you when you join. And then we're also going to do something really fun called the Virtual Idea Exchange. And this is where you can have a picture of your gals doing something, participating in an event or an outreach of some kind, share that photo out and explain what your group did. And in that way, you are able to encourage others, but also you'll be able to read their ideas as well. Okay, so Maya, I think that I'm going to ask you to stream out a question here. We don't have anybody that's joined us in the green room, but sometimes this can take some time and sometimes it can never happen. So we'll just see how this goes. Maya, if you want to throw out that first question, if you have it, we'll see if we can do that. Okay. So I think while we're waiting for that, I'm going to ask each of you to just share one thing that someone in leadership told you that made a huge difference in your leadership. And I'm going to start. I remember I was going into, so I always say I've been a mentor to women since I was 11 years old and started helping in the 4-year-old Sunday school. So I've always seen myself as just ahead of somebody somewhere. And that's what a mentor is just a little farther on the path than somebody else who lets them come into their life and learn. So I was just starting for the first time to teach junior high Sunday school. And actually it was 5th and 6th grade. And I was taking the class over from a lady that I just love named Gwen. And I said, do you have any advice for me? And she said, I'm going to give you the same advice that someone gave me when I started teaching Sunday school. She said, they're never going to remember most of your words, but they will always remember if you loved them. And that just changed how I did ministry going forward. And it's still true. My words will mostly be forgotten, but my heart, I hope, the way that I love, the way that Jesus loves through me, I hope that that lasts and affects indefinitely. All right, somebody jump in.
I think a couple jump out at me first. It is not a fake it till you make it when you're in leadership or in ministry. It is a reminder. I think that the higher that you get in leadership and in ministry, it's a reminder that people are watching you all the time. And your actions, the way you respond, you may talk about delegation, but are you delegating? It's all of this. And I think it's just being very aware that, that's a weight to carry too. And that is also the reminder of why you should take care of yourself and follow all the advice we give, because people are watching and choices they make will be based on what they see in you, and they're watching you more than ever.
Yeah, love that.
I think one thing that I learned early on, I read this book when I was getting my master's in theology. It was by Andy Stanley and it was called Choosing to Cheat. And this idea that we can sometimes cheat on our families with ministry. And that radically changed me as I went into full-time ministry. I was already in full-time ministry, is this idea that my family, it's biblical. They will come first. My kids will always know that it is God, it is my husband, and it is them. And then it is all my work that God has given me in that order. And that keeps things emphasized, so that when I have to choose, I am choosing them, because that's what actually God wants me to do. Because like Suzanne said, I'm the only one that can tuck them in at night. And that puts all things in order when I have to say yes or no.
Love that.
One of the things that was a huge transformation for me, and it's something that I continuously share with others, because I think it's a self-awareness piece and it's a practical thing. It really is. I was in a conversation with somebody. It was getting a little heated, not aggressive, but just we had very strong opinions. And they stopped and looked right at me and said, "You're not listening to hear, you're listening to respond." And it hit me so hard because it was so true. And I think that a lot of times we get into our minds, and instead of hearing what the other person's really saying, instead of taking the time to actually really listen and absorb and put whatever ideas and thoughts and responses we may have completely on the back burner and not pay any attention to them and just hear them, then we can take a moment and respond. If we're somebody who thinks quickly, that's great. Then that means we can respond right away. If we're somebody who has to take a minute and process what was said, it doesn't have to be awkward. We can simply say something like, "You know what? That makes a lot of sense. Let me think about that for a second," and then respond, because then they know that you're not just waiting, right? But to actually hear them first, then think about what do we want to say and speak, changed everything for me in the way of communication. And it's something that I've carried with me for the rest of my life.
Love it. Good. Excellent. So question is, what would be a simple first step to building deeper connections in her group?
I think the first is really listening. Really, truly. I mean, everybody wants to be seen, but they also have something that they're either verbally saying or through their body language. And to get to know those people, their heart, like was being said earlier, to get to know their heart, listen to them. Instead of always wanting to be the person to share and give, just take a time and be that servant, the person who can just hear them.
I think there's a power to being understood. It's kind of like what you're saying, Jessie. It's asking open-ended questions, not assuming anything, and it's taking people for coffee, which takes time. It's investing. Like I said, most valuable resource we have is our time. And to give that to somebody when you're really trying to build a deeper connection, it speaks volumes, I think.
I just want to say about the listening part too. I feel like we as the leaders have opportunities to build into our programs the space that it takes to have conversations. I know I'm a super productive person. I just, every minute matters and all that. And so I can tend to book everything too tightly, not have the space and the grace for those conversations that need to be happening, that develop the deeper connections. You just can't develop them when all women are doing is listening to a speaker, a music group, so yeah. Suzanne?
It sounds simple, but never forget the power of a table. The church table. There's power in a table. And a story that even came true where it's not just, that's like all aspects of life. I invited my news team, my news managers to my house once for like an offsite. And one of the members of my team, he was actually an elder in a church. So, I mean, I knew it. And he's like, I'll be honest with you. I dreaded going to your house for this. Like, who wants to go to their boss's house, all day and talk about these things. And then he's like, it reminded me, there's something powerful about sitting around a dining room table with a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. We're going to take just a pause here for a moment and give away one of our prizes. So we've got great prizes we're giving away all throughout this grand opening. And Suzanne, we're going to give away your book, Wired to Lead. And that's the reason you were here today. I selected you because of this book, because I got to know you. And it's like, I love this book. And so we want to give away a copy of this right now. So hang with us here and we'll see who's going to win it. Congratulations, Gayla. How exciting. That's wonderful. And I want, Suzanne, just for you guys who are listening, your background was, you've mentioned it a couple times, in a busy newsroom a lot.
Yes.
And you bring this unique perspective to leadership. So maybe just take 2 minutes and just tell us about that.
Yeah. So the book Wired to Lead, being the leader the church didn't think you could be. I grew up with a background where women weren't allowed to be in church leadership. I'm a pastor's daughter. I am, in my dad's words, wired just like my dad. They say each preacher has a kid with a preaching gene, and it was me. Just because of my upbringing, I didn't think going into anything besides, kids ministry, and I don't like kids that much, or music ministry. I'm not that gifted, were really options for me. So I fell in love with journalism, watching Old School 2020 with my dad. And I went into the news world. I've been a reporter. I worked production. I worked my way up through to a producer, and I ended up being a news director, which means I ran newsrooms up until my last position, which I left just in July. I was leading the #1 local news team in the country, WSB in Atlanta. So I spent 30 years in TV news. What I found as I got older is all of these Bible-based life lessons I learned in leading newsrooms and amongst leadership and people who embraced me in newsrooms and in the news industry. And I just thought, wouldn't it have been wonderful? God obviously had a plan for me, and it all, it's all played out in ways that I never expected. But wouldn't it have been awesome if I would have learned these life lessons in other places? So it's if I would have given it any other title, it would have been Life Lessons I Learned in a Newsroom that I wish I learned in church. And it is really a tribute to women who helped and men who embraced women and supported them. And life leadership lessons that you can put in any aspect of what you're in. A lot of newsroom stories, a lot of church kid stories. But that's what the book is.
So congrats to Gayla. You guys ought to check out that book. And also we will give away one more copy in the grand prize that we're doing on Thursday afternoon. So pay attention to that. We have one more question here we want to tackle, and then we'll get another winner. How do I know if I'm truly called or just filling a need? Oh, wow. That's such a good question. I remember years ago, we could not find anyone to run the nursery ministry at the church. We had been really looking. And I finally said to my husband, I said, I think I just have to do it. And he said, no, you will not do it. And I said, well, somebody has to do it and nobody's stepping up. He said, and if you do, no one will ever step up. It was a good moment for me. It's like, okay, just because you're willing doesn't mean you're called, right? Somebody else feed into this. Help me out here.
Well, we're there right now in our ministry. Like, I don't have a mom's ministry. My leader backed out and I don't have anybody to fill it. And God has just given me peace that, like, you know what? If I don't have a mom's ministry next year and God's going to do something different, that's okay. It may take a year for somebody to rise up. But as far as the question of like, how do I know if I'm just filling a need or if I am obeying my calling, I think that's something you have to go to the Lord and say, Lord, is this really what you want me to be doing? And sometimes I will say we feel a need, and that's how we find out what our calling is. We either say, oh, this is not my calling, or we even can say, hey, this is actually leading me into something else. I do think that the first thing we can do is just to say yes and to see where God kind of guides us. But a lot of those questions are things we just have to sit before the Lord and hear what he is saying within us on if we're where we're supposed to be or not.
And a lot of it is like, yes, you're supposed to do this, but just for a minute. You're not supposed to be here for years. You know, this is a very temporary calling. Suzanne?
I'm going to go back to what you said earlier, Nicole. I think we can make t-shirts or bumper stickers saying, don't be a blessing blocker. Remember that thing keep doing because somebody else will do could be the opportunity someone else is praying for.
Mm-hmm.
And they may just need the permission or the encouragement or something to do. But if you just keep filling everything for the sake of fear, again, that's a lack of trust that we're going back to, that it's going to be taken care of in the way that it's supposed to. Mm-hmm. It's not going to develop the way that it's supposed to. And you're not going to be able to sustain. You're going to run yourself ragged.
Mm-hmm. Jessie?
Yeah. And I think that there's also the side that as you're growing, right, in your faith, you won't necessarily just kick off day 2. I'm in my purpose now. Right? It's a journey, right? And sometimes the thing that we're doing that is just filling a need is actually teaching us vital skills and building certain relationships that are important down the road once we do start to walk into that calling. And, you know, a calling isn't necessarily a single thread. What I've discovered over the years is I have like 5 different threads. 3 of them really large threads, and they all weave together now. They weren't weaving together at one point. It looked like, how in the world am I going to keep this going? And then God started to lay one over the other, another over the other. And so sometimes what we may find is that part of those needs that we're filling are in one way, maybe not directly, but maybe indirectly part of a calling that he's got for us down the road. And so again, that whole say yes, you know, we are not our own. We were bought with a price. We are not living this life for ourselves. And sometimes it's okay to do something that's not part of your calling if you're there to support and to lift up someone else.
Yeah, God's calling you to it. Just say yes. And I had a moment a couple of weeks ago. I told the story about how we ended up owning a restaurant. That was a surprise to me. I didn't ever imagine that I'd own a restaurant or a business like that. And God used that then to even further my ministry. It allowed me to talk to business women starting businesses after that. Recently, one of my speakers, who's been a speaker for a couple of decades, she was a TV show host and she's written books. She reached out and she said, okay, you got to take me off the speaker list now because my husband and I bought a McDonald's and we have 87 employees and that's going to be my thing next. You have no idea what God's going to do in your life. You have no clue. We have kind of this big picture idea and we have these passions that he put inside of us, but we don't know exactly how he's going to walk that out. So as you're walking out your ministry, your life, just be, again, that open hand keep laying things on the table, saying what's supposed to stay, what's supposed to go. We keep coming back to this, and it all comes down to trust. All comes down to trust. Okay, we are going to give away Jessie's book next. Hang on one second. Let me find that one. And this is Reclaiming Connection. Jessie, can you just give us a little tiny background on this?
Absolutely. So it's relational wealth, reclaiming connection in a competitive world. And really how it all came to be is I'd been in corporate America doing big things for a long time. And what I realized is that often I was the only woman sitting at the table. And when I would connect with other women, they tended to be so focused on just trying to get through to where they felt like they were supposed to be that a lot of their relationships fell away. And so while they may have found themselves at the top, they found themselves there alone. And that's not how God has called us to be. And regardless of whether that is you pushing everything you have into being a mom and trying to make sure your house is taken care of, or whether you are, pushing everything you have into being a CEO or running the women's ministry at your church, relationships are not a luxury. They are an important part of the fabric of the tapestry that God is weaving across his body. And so when we neglect those relationships, it doesn't only put us in a place of deficit, but it puts our entire community of women in a place of deficit. And so this book actually was birthed out of recognizing relational poverty and realizing that as women, we need to be there to lift each other up, put competition to the side, build collaboration. And through that, I give a lot of history of why we ended up in this place in the first place, but also I end it with really giving an easy 90-day plan of how to move from relational poverty into relational wealth. And relational wealth is a place that we may not stay in throughout our lives, but we need to continuously be moving towards. And it's really important for all of us and for what God has called us into.
And before I give away this book here that you've donated, thank you so much. I want to make sure that you guys know that you can get these free gifts in the About section at the Facebook group. You can get the WM flow chart from Deborah, the Relational Wealth quiz from Jessie, and also the closet swap guide from Lynette. And those are all available in that About section. Okay, let's see who wins this book. Constance, well, congratulations to you. We will be getting in touch with, so get your address and you can get that mailed out. Wonderful. Okay, so as we are coming down, we're coming down to the ending here pretty soon. We do have one more question here. Hang on, let me pull that up. Okay, how do I avoid burnout when I'm the dependable one? I love that. There, I'm going to start, and then I'm going to pass it around here for 1-minute responses. There are seasons where you absolutely just have to say, we're not going to do that this year. We're not going to do that this time around. I'm going to simplify this farther than I ever thought it could be simplified. There are seasons when you will push really hard. I want to just tell you about the season I just came off of. On January 1st, my 100-year-old mother-in-law came to stay with us for 2.5 months. We live in Florida and she lives in Minnesota, and she just does better in the warm weather. And so I became her primary caregiver, and I just loved that. It was amazing, amazing. However, in order to make that work, I got up at 3 to 4 a.m. every morning while she was here. That's how life could work with that added responsibilities. And from the very beginning, I tried to figure out how to make it myself. Like I tried, like, okay, if I fit naps in here, if I do this and that, and it just wouldn't work. There was no way. So then I made a different plan. I thought, okay, I'm going to take this time off and have that. And again, that didn't work. And so then I just had to say, okay, God, I'm going to let you order this thing. I'm going to go to bed when you tell me to go to bed. I'm going to get up when you tell me to get up, and I'm not going to worry about it. And what I did was, for 2.5 months, I just lived very supernaturally. If anybody asked me how I was doing, I would say, great, I'm living supernaturally. And that's how it was. I didn't get sick. I popped out of bed at 3 a.m. in the morning or whatever time I was supposed to get up. Sometimes those times that I had in the night there was quiet were unbelievably productive or spiritually blessing times for me. We had just had a beautiful time with her, enjoyed it so, so much. But when she went home last week, there, and my programmer also, who's in India, one of my programmers went away for a week. There came a day when it's like, oh, I don't even have to get up early. I can just sleep however long I want. And there was a blessing that was on me for a season, for a reason, not because I was supposed to push that hard forever, but because in that moment, that was what I was saying yes to God about. He had asked me to do all of this, and he was going to provide for me. So sometimes, how do you avoid burnout? It's just staying really close to Jesus and doing what he asked and looking to him for the strength, the energy, the ideas, the help, or whatever that just don't seem to be there. He can do miracles. So just trust him. All right. 1 minute. Jessie.
Yeah, I think, in the, first off, everything there, yes. But then even, just thinking about when I was writing my first book, I had a 15-month-old at home, a 3-month-old at home. I was literally the week I was going back to work, and I ran the entire household myself. And so I started writing my book that week. How did I get through it in exactly 9 months, published and out the door? Because I set a schedule, and I said, I am not writing or thinking about my book these 2 days every week. And sometimes it's not always scheduling what you have to do, but it's also scheduling what you won't do. And saying, I am committing to myself that I'm taking this downtime. God tells us to take a Sabbath day. It's not arbitrary. He actually says that for a reason. It's a commandment. And so if you're not taking a Sabbath day, and Sabbath is that I'm not working, it doesn't mean you aren't doing anything. But if it's that I have to, it means it doesn't happen that day. And you get to do the I want to's, and make yourself do that, because just like a tithe, once you start doing it, it happens, and you don't see it missing. Once you start taking your Sabbath, you start doing it, you're not going to notice that time missing, because God is gracious and he will take it over. You're not meant to go and stop and forever and not and always burn both ends of the candle. It's not meant to be.
Great. Suzanne, 1 minute.
Seasons are seasons. So identify when the season ends and goes into a next season, because I think we can sometimes justify, oh, this is a season, the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a season. So I identify that it's a season, when it's going to end, when the situation should end, for guidance and seeing when that should be. I would also say, if you're looking at yourself as the only dependable one, there may need to be who else around there is there that you need to bring into your circle, or relationship wise, or it sounds like there may need to be some work there on figuring out what it is that you should and shouldn't be doing, and what could be opportunities for things. And there may be, this is hard for us to say, there may be some things that don't get done, and becoming okay with that.
I'm just going to piggyback right off of that. The idea of let go and let God, and just be reminded that, guess what? God is way more dependable than we even think we are. Yeah. And he can be trusted. In 2 Timothy, there's a verse about how God cannot be unfaithful, because he is he is the epitome of faithfulness. And just let him be God, and stop wearing it all on our shoulders, and just trust him. It all comes back to that idea of trust. Let go and let God, because he's way more dependable than even we think we are.
Beautiful. Love it, love it, love it. We have one more prize to give away. This is the Women's Ministry Retreat Planning Guide, including an Excel, it's a spreadsheet, budget worksheet, because as I was working with planners, a lot of times they would go over budget or be like, I don't know how to plan this. I don't know how to charge for this. So this is a gift for me to somebody here. Congratulations, Donna. So excited. Well, this concludes our first day of the grand opening of the Women's Ministry Association. I hope that you will go check that out, that it will, if it's not for you, it might be for a friend of yours who is a women's ministry leader in a church. And we encourage you to share this out with anyone you know who has that position or is thinking of that position. I want to right now just thank you each so much for being here. And Suzanne, thank you, my dear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jessie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having us on.
And Nicole, thank you.
It was an honor. It was great to meet all of you and have all the discussion. So thank you, Marnie, for putting this together.
And thank each of you for joining us. I hope that you will have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope to see you right back here tomorrow, same time, different place. You use the link that we provide tomorrow, but we'll see you then. We're going to be talking tomorrow about building a firm foundation for a strong ministry going forward. So we'll see you then. Have a great day. Bye-bye.